After 140 days, the 89th Texas legislative session has ended, but there's still a number of bills undecided on the governor's desk.
That's right. One of the biggest ones is SB 3. That bill would ban THC and hemp all across the state. That bill now sitting on Governor Greg Abbott's desk, but there is a big push for him to try to veto it. I talked with Brad Johnson, a political reporter with the Texan, about the session and whether or not the bill will get vetoed.
Brad Johnson with the Texan joining us here on KTBS 3 News. Brad, thanks so much for joining us. 140 days going by in the blink of an eye. Sine Dia is finally here. Your thoughts on how the session went as someone who's been covering pretty much the last 6 months of lawmakers at work?
Well, it was a lot less contentious than, first of all, last session was, and that I thought this was going to go going into this legislative session. Of course, there was the brutal speaker fight within the House. Speaker Dustin Burrows won that, and the question was, would members get along enough to pass legislation, and would he get along enough with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick? Short answer is yes. They got a lot of their priorities across the line. There were some things that died, but the Lieutenant Governor has kind of become a gauge for this, and I think they passed 35 of his 40 priorities in the House, and so that's pretty good ROI for the Lieutenant Governor. Both of them struck an amicable chord throughout the session. The House got some of its priorities, most notably a significant pay bump for teachers and school finance increase just generally. That was $8.5 billion. Overall, I think they'll mark this as a pretty successful session, if for no other reason than things didn't completely fall apart.
One bill that Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick did declare an emergency for him was the banning of THC. That bill has now cleared the houses, or both chambers, now sitting on Governor Greg Abbott's desk. There's a lot of pushback for him to veto this bill. And I know that Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick wanted this done, or else he was prepared to call a special session in order to get this done. If for some reason the governor decides to veto this, could we see a special session?
Only the governor can call a special session. The lieutenant governor can try and force one. Overall, this would be the governor's call. If he vetoes this, I don't think he would put it on a special. They may be back next session to try and take another whack at it. But in the meantime, I think if he does want to veto this bill, he'll try and find some more agency-focused way of going about the same problem, stricter regulations. I don't think this is special session fodder, if for no other reason that nobody wants to go through this again in the legislature, given how much of a third rail this has become out in the public eye.
How important was it? I know education was a top priority for the governor. Can the governor declare this a successful session in the fact that he was able to get a majority of his agenda, specifically education, through both chambers?
Yeah, it's been a long, arduous path for the governor. He spent millions of dollars. He himself went on the campaign trail during the primaries last year to try and get enough votes in the House to get his education savings account plan across the line, and it worked. There's going to be some bumps in the road in implementation, as there always are with government bureaucracies. So this issue is not going away as a salient political issue. But as far as the front end victory, I think Governor Abbott can definitely claim that. They also passed teacher pay raises and school finance increase. This time they didn't couple it or tie it to the education savings account program, which caused it all to collapse last session. The governor did make the teacher pay a priority, an emergency item in his State of the State address. And so it all got across the line at the end, education-wise, and we're just going to kind of see where the chips fall going forward in implementation.
Brad Johnson with the Texan, thank you for your insight, your analysis, a recap of the last 140 days. It's always interesting to see what plays out in the state of Texas.
Thanks for having me.
And during the session, Texas lawmakers passed more than 1,000 bills. Nearly 1,200 were sent to Governor Greg Abbott. So far, the governor has vetoed 76 bills this session. As we mentioned, a lot of folks hoping that number will be 77. Bills that are not passed today are considered dead. After today, Governor Abbott has 20 days to act on bills sent to him in the final 10 days of the session. And the next time that Texas lawmakers will regularly meet for another session is January of 2027.